Thanks, Ken. I want to start off by just telling you it's an honor for me to follow Greg Schweitz speaking. Greg has sort of been my mentor in Serra, and he's coached me along the way, and all the advice he's given me has been great, and I've had nothing but joy from the stuff I've done, so thank you, Greg. Today I want to come and talk to you about, I get a chance to talk to a lot of clubs. I did when I was region director, and last year as leadership chair of the committee, Leadership Development Committee, I got a chance to go around and visit clubs. But I had kind of a standard message that I'd like to pass on to all of you here today. It's short, but it's very important. And you may know some of it, but it doesn't hurt to hear it again. So I want to tell you why a Serra Club is special in our church. It starts with our mission: to foster and affirm priesthood and religious vocations, and in doing so, to increase our own faith. There are really three distinct missions that are embedded in this mission statement. The first is to foster new vocations to the priesthood and religious life. The second is to affirm and support existing priesthood and religious vocations. And third is to grow in our own holiness through the work we do. This is the only purpose for which Serra exists. Everything we do, our prayers, programs, service, and fellowship, must be measured against this mission. There are other lay groups in the Catholic Church that assist in the vocations effort, like the Knights of Columbus, and they do a great job. But Serra is the only organization whose sole purpose is to do this. Second, Serra is special because it is officially aggregated to the Vatican and the worldwide Catholic Church. And you heard Greg talk about this. In fact, Serra is the only lay Catholic apostolate officially aggregated to the church. What does that mean? It means that we are part of and under the direction of the Vatican. At all times, a cardinal of the church is appointed as overseer and advisor to Serra. Our current Serra International Episcopal Advisor is Cardinal Tom Collins of Toronto, Canada. He attends almost all the Serra International gatherings and most of the U.S. Council gatherings, in fact, to direct and advise us. What other lay organization in the Catholic Church has the regular, active oversight of a cardinal? Third, we are a part of the infrastructure of the church. We are more permanent than other vocations ministries. So while vocations clubs and parish vocations ministries may ebb and flow, as they always do, Serra is expected to be the stalwart that continually fans the flames and puts the fuel on the vocations fire to keep it burning brightly. It's not hard to imagine a vocations club ineffective or even extinct after 5 years without belonging to something bigger and larger than itself. Because a Serra Club is part of something bigger and larger than itself, Serra Clubs are built to last. Fourth, this is Cardinal Collins, our Episcopal advisor, recently told Serrans, and again Greg was alluding to this, he said, action follows prayer. Meaning that while prayer is the foundation, true prayer almost always calls us to some kind of action, especially prayers for vocation. A Serra Club provides opportunities for that action not available to the individual, like appreciation events to honor the bishop, priests, sisters, religious, and seminarians, like spiritually adopting seminarians, like organizing holy hours for vocations and monthly rosaries in parishes, like passing out prayer cards of the seminarians during Catholic Schools Week, like organizing traveling chalice and crucifix programs, and many others. People have said to me, I can pray for vocations without being a Serran. Maybe, but a Serra Club is really the only effective way to put those prayers into action. Fifth, and this is very important, because we are aggregated to the Vatican, we are subject to the Church's structure of authority. That means that a Serra Club works with and for the bishop and the vocations director. Clubs do not report to district governors, nor do they report to regional directors. They do not even report to the president of the Serra Council or the president of Serra International. And for sure, Serra Clubs do not report to themselves and operate independently of oversight. We report to the bishop and the vocations director in our diocese. They are our bosses. And because of that, Serrans have a special relationship with and access to the bishop. One of the great privileges of being a Serran is that we have the opportunity to know and work with the bishop, as well as his priests, seminarians, sisters, and religious, in a way that few lay Catholics ever will. Bishops regularly attend Serra Club functions, such as the annual seminarian lunch or dinner, the priest appreciation event, and the sisters appreciation dinner, as well as occasionally serving as a speaker at a Serra monthly meeting. This close relationship with and access to the bishop stands as one of the most special things about being a Serran. Finally, a Serra Club does not stand alone. There are 198 Serra Clubs in the U.S. and about 400 Serra Clubs worldwide. There are over 7,400 Serrans in the U.S. and over 12,500 Serrans worldwide. Being part of a larger network of clubs helps us to do and afford things that individual clubs cannot, like creating and maintaining a website to help vocations directors nationwide, the serraspark.org website, like offering parish vocations ministry training to dioceses all across the country, like the 7 Serrans prayer teams now organized to pray for vocations directors by name across the country for 1 hour each day, even vocations directors in dioceses that do not have Serra Clubs. And like outreach to the USCCB, the National Diocesan Vocation Directors Association, NCYC, Focus, and the National Youth Ministers Association to coordinate efforts on vocations. Things that just one club cannot do. If all this is not enough to convince you that a Serra Club has a special role in our church, let me share with you the words of Pope Francis to Serrans during a private audience in 2017. These are his words. To be friends to priests, sustaining their vocation and accompanying them in their ministry. With this great gift, you enrich the church. This is, above all else, what a Serran is, a special friend whom the Lord has brought into the lives of seminarians and priests. The Serra Club helps foster this beautiful vocation of being laity who are friends to priests, friends who know how to accompany and sustain them in faith, in fidelity to prayer and apostolic commitment. Friends who share the wonder of a vocation, the courage of a definitive decision, the joy and fatigue of ministry. Friends who can offer priests support and regard their generous efforts and human failings with understanding and tender love. In this way, you are to priests like the home of Bethany, where Jesus entrusted his weariness to Martha and Mary, and thanks to their care, was able to find rest and refreshment. Dear brothers and sisters, I encourage you to be true friends to seminarians and priests, showing your love for them by promoting vocations and through prayer and pastoral cooperation. Please keep pressing forward, forward in hope, forward with your mission, ever looking beyond, opening new horizons, making room for the young, and preparing for the future. The church and priestly vocations need you. The church and priestly vocations need you. You heard Greg say that same thing in his talk. That confirms beyond doubt to me how special a Serra Club is in the church. Serra is not a hobby. It is not a social club. It is a ministry. To be part of a Serra Club is a special vocational calling in itself. St. John Henry Newman said, God has created me to do him some definite service. He has committed some work to me which he has not committed to another. I have my mission. And so do all of you. It's not an accident that you are a member of a Serra Club. There are no accidents in God's great plan. God has put this ministry into your heart. This is the work God has committed to you. Keep your Serra Club special. Pope Francis's words describe perfectly the challenge to us in the future years. Please keep pressing forward, forward in hope, forward with your mission, ever looking beyond, opening new horizons, making room for the young, and preparing for the future. So I want to thank you all for being Serrans, but I want you to always remember and be able to say why we are special, because we are special in the church. Those are the reasons that I give at my talks for why a Serra Club is special. But I want to add one more that's a reason that I think Serra Clubs are special. It's because of all of you. It's the people of Serra. And I have to tell you that that's why I joined Serra. I saw this humble holiness at work, assisting our vocations director who was struggling, and the vocations office, and I was just overwhelmed by the good Catholics that were in Serra. And they are some of the best Catholics that I have ever known, and some of the best people I've ever known. And to be honest, so I do as much as I can in Serra in hopes that some of your holiness will rub off on me. Okay, I've got one other thing to talk about if I've got time, but I want to tell you, I'm going to share this with you. I brought some of these books with me. It's a book I wrote. I felt inspired to write it. It's a prayer book called Shadow Prayers, and I actually wrote it for a Serra retreat with 3 weeks' notice that I got assigned to because the priest couldn't do it. So sometimes that's the way the Holy Spirit works best. I got to tell you, it's not specifically about Serra. It's about how to put meaning back into the great prayers in the Catholic Church. The Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be, the Sign of the Cross, the Mass, and the Rosary. But if you realize that we use those prayers in almost everything we do in Serra, the more meaning we can put into those prayers, the more effective I think our appeal to God to help us in our mission will be. So feel free to take one of these if you'd like. Yeah, there's, think about this, I'll go back. When I joined Serra, my Serra Club was kind of the old-fashioned Serra Club, pretty much Catholic businessmen that met for lunch. And everything we did in our Serra Club, we did it within the club. Every vocations activity, it was rosary in the club. It was Mass with the Serrans. At some point along the line, I think the leadership of Serra began to recognize there's never going to be enough Serrans for the prayers that are necessary for vocations. And that instead of being the sole force for vocations, we have to be the leaders for vocations. And that's why I think that these liaisons with groups like the National Diocesan Vocation Directors Association, Focus, focuses the young kids that go out on campus for 2 years, give their life for missionary or ministry work. There's a lot of good things that have happened in vocations because of those people's work, including many of them becoming seminarians. I think somebody said 10% of the current seminarians were Focus missionaries. You have the National Catholic Youth Conference, which is usually something that sometimes the Pope will engage in. So the others, and I can't think of all the ones I mentioned there, Gino, but I think that those liaisons are incredibly important, but they go to our role as a leader in the vocations effort. We cannot think of ourselves as the sole force, or I think we'll fail. Any other questions? Yes?
That's a great question, and the easy answer is go to Thailand next July. And I'm serious, you raised a great thing that really touched me, because I was like Mike, when I came to my Toledo, Ohio Serra Club, I just thought this was it. This is Toledo, Ohio, and this is Serra. And when I went to my first international convention, which happened in Pittsburgh, and you see people from Nigeria, you see people from Asia, you see people from Mexico, and it just kind of changes your perspective on Serra and the church. I think, I'm not really going to talk here, but I think we can be myopic in America and think the Catholic Church is what we see on TV and what we see in our parish and what we want to complain about to our neighbor in the pew and things like that. And you go around and see internationally, and I think what I see is joy. I see so much joy in these Serrans around the world, and that's why I love Mike's talk that he was just given, because Serra is about the people, and Serras are joyful people. And so it is fun to see if you can do, a rally, like in Dallas in January, or if you can do an international convention. The next one's in Thailand, then after that, New Orleans. And you just see people from around the world, hopefully no viruses or anything coming back. It's just really exciting to see the church at work and these other places.
Yeah, I focused, when Gino asked his question, I focused on these national organizations, but I think the clubs themselves have evolved to the point where, for example, our Des Moines club, I don't think there's hardly anything we do strictly within the club anymore. We go out and try to set up 31 clubs in all the parishes. I think there's going to be a huge effort to do traveling crucifix programs in the schools in the Des Moines Diocese, and that'll be sponsored and organized by the Serra Club. So, there's all kinds of things that I think our clubs can do outside of just the club members, and I think that's really where we get our leverage. So, okay, appreciate that comment, though. I'm going to finish up here. I've got about 20 minutes. I just thought I would share with you my priorities for the next 2 years. I always like comments, either now or later, on whether you think they're good or bad, or I'm missing something, or should throw something out. But my first priority, I have 5 priorities for the coming 2 years. My first priority is to strengthen the culture of vocations in the Hispanic Catholic community. Greg already mentioned that 50% of the young people in our church identify as Hispanic, so we are an Hispanic church. And unfortunately, Serra clubs have not, in most cases, have not developed the ability to reach out to the Hispanic communities. But just like we were talking about reaching outside of our club, our goal, I think, is going to be to reach out to the Hispanic Catholics to get them praying for Hispanic vocations. That is the greatest need in the church right now. So that's the first priority. The second one is to broaden the use of the vocations programs that we have in Serra to all the parishes and all the schools in the United States. That's an ambitious goal, but I think it's important. I'll come back to that one in a second. The third one is to engage bishops and vocations directors, have clubs engage bishops and vocations directors in the annual planning for your club's activities. And I'll talk about that too in a second. Fourth one is I would like to help clubs encourage them to recruit younger members, especially people in the 45 to 55-year-old category. That's where I think we should be targeting our efforts there. And fifth is I'd like to see us either start or restart 5 new clubs in the United States in the next 2 years. So if I go back to the top of those, strengthening the cultural vocations in the Hispanic Catholic community, we have 3 things that are going on there. First is the Serra Hispanic Ambassador Project. And I hope some of you have seen that, but it's an attempt to get clubs to encourage them to reach out. From my experience, I don't think we're going to see a major influx of Hispanics into Serra clubs. The cultural and the language barriers are too great. But that doesn't mean we can't go out and recruit 1 or 2 key individuals in the Hispanic community who can help us connect with the Hispanic Catholics. And that's what I'd like to adopt as a strategy at this point. So that's the first thing. To do that means we got to have materials that are in Spanish. And we are woefully weak in that, but we are making enormous progress right now in converting materials to Spanish language. And third, I don't know if you've seen this, but there is the U.S. Council Board approved adding a new permanent vice president for cultural outreach to the board. And the goal there is not just Hispanic, but to make sure that we never forget about the parts of the church that are not well represented in our clubs. And that requires a bylaw change, and I'm hoping that all the club presidents will vote in favor of that. So that's the strengthening the cultural vocations in the Hispanic Catholic community. The second one is increasing the use of our programs in schools and parishes. This is a great place to come for that because you've got Bob Barrett's program, the Galilee program, going on in Detroit. with the traveling chalice. I think he uses very extensive there, as well as adoration and the 31 Club. We have a national program that's similar. Bob's program focuses on the parish priest. Margot Getty, who's on the Serra International Board, has a program called Serra Sprint. And hers is very similar, except it focuses on reaching the youth ministers in the parishes. But the one that I'm most hopeful of is the one that Dr. Ann Rote got started for us. Got to give her a lot of credit for this Ignite program that Greg already talked about. And I like Ignite. It's basically what we do is we offer to go out and do a free day of teaching in a diocese on how to establish vocations, parish vocations ministries. And what we ask the diocese to do is to provide a place, the technology that we need, but most important is to get at least 3 to 5 parishes pulled together with 3 to 5 parishioners from those parishes each, and then we'll do this training. And what's so great about the Ignite program, and the training is largely about how to use the Serra Vocations programs on Serra Spark. What's so great about that is everywhere else, we're attacking the problem one parish at a time. There's like 13,000 parishes in the United States. It just looks like an enormous group for us to target. But if we can get dioceses to kind of pre-qualify the parishes where there's an interest and the people within those parishes that are interested, I think we can make enormous strides there. So that's getting the programs used more broadly. Informing the bishop and getting him engaged, I just think we take for granted too much that we think that our bishops know what we do. I don't think they do. They know the appreciation dinners that they're invited to, but I don't know that they're fully aware of all the prayer activities that we have. And so what I'm encouraging clubs to do is every year to send a letter, a 2-page letter. First page is just a executive report on what the club did the prior year, including the prayer-based activities. And the second page is, what do we plan to do next year? And to ask the bishop for his input and his feedback before you finalize that. This thing is only going to work if we're a team with the bishop and the vocations director. So it's important that we include them with the information so they can be part of that team. The younger members, age 45 to 55, we're working really hard right now to focus on, or to create a liaison with Focus. That, again, is the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. They have a group called the Alumni. Those are people that were ministers but now have gone out in their own life. They're great Catholics. They have big families. I mean, they're just committed to vocations. And we'd like to get those people interested in thinking about Serra as a place to land as they grow older and get close to an empty nester stage. One other thing I will tell you that I haven't had much luck with, I'm a great believer that we ought to cut the dues in half for everybody under 55. I have not gotten much support at an upper level for that, but I'm not going to give up for 2 years here. And the reason I think that is because, we currently cut dues in half for people under 35. But the information in our database, which is really poor, tends to suggest that most of those people drop out. Over half of them drop out by 37. So we're not keeping those people in. And those people have busy lives at that point anyway. Their families are growing, they've got activities. I think that the target group is this group that's coming close to an empty nester position and maybe retirement. But if we could get those people involved, those people guarantee, it might cost us something in the short term, but it might guarantee that we have a long term. And that's what we need right now. We need to get those people engaged. And finally, the club starting up, that one I figured was going to be the most challenging. And there's just things happening all over. It's just amazing. The Holy Spirit is working. But right after that, this Kearney, Nebraska club, Greg mentioned them. They started up July 8th. And there had been discussions about the Kearney Club for at least 5 years. And all of a sudden, it just happened. Bishop, vocations director, they just made it happen. And then we had the North Houston Hispanic Serra Club just popped up. And it was a combination of having a vocations director and a parish priest and a bishop and one of our key officers, Candace Terrell, in the right place at the right time. And, Kearney started with 38 members. I thought that was really good. They have 49 members that they started with. I mean, a good sized club to start up with. And I can tell you that there are great opportunities all around the country right now for clubs to start up. It's a challenging deal because what we lack is the boots on the ground. We need to know who the prospects are, and we don't know that. So we really need the help of the vocations director, the bishop, or one super excited parish priest at least who can give us those leads and help us get going. But the Holy Spirit is working. Those things are coming together. I think we're going to have clubs in southeast Kansas within a year. I think the Toledo club is going to restart, or not Toledo, what am I thinking of down in Kansas? Topeka, yeah, Topeka. Yeah, and St. Joe's already has a charter date for January, so I think we might have our third club there. But and I know there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's really exciting, and it isn't because of me. It's just watching the Holy Spirit power through this thing. No, it is not me. Anyway, I'd be willing to take some questions on that. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Ken if he wants. But any questions or comments about those? And one of the things I would say, because of the comment here, I don't think we've done a good job of telling Sarans about the above the club level. And so I think a lot of people have had a hard time buying into what we do because they don't even know what we do. And we need to do a better job of doing that. But part of that is for you too, to think about what you'd like to see from the leadership in Serra and to let us know that. I want to finish with one comment and then I'll take questions. My favorite job in all of Serra was being a district governor. And we got 5 district governors here today. And I just love that job. And the easiest job I ever had was the regional director because I had 7 great district governors that did all the work. All I had to do was get out of the way. And so I hope you find as much joy in that job. And I want to thank you for stepping up. Greg talked about where you find leaders. They come from rooms like this. People that agree to step up and take just a little bit more on their plate and make things happen in Serra. But this above the club level is, what is so fun about it is, I joined Serra because I really was impressed with the people in my club in Des Moines. And once I became a district governor, I realized I had 5 other clubs, and I got to know them. It took me 2 years, but I thought, holy smokes, these people are just as nice as the people in Des Moines, And it's just been that way everywhere, central region, and now I get a chance to go around the country. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And if you ever feel God calling you to it, listen hard. It's important work, but it's also something that I think you'll find great joy from. Gino? Yeah, we have this missionaries membership contest that's been going on now. I think this will be the 4th year. And we've done some evaluation of it to see if it's been effective because the membership has not grown much net. But what we found out when we sat down and looked at the statistics, and again, I got to thank Greg for doing this, I think we had 400 new members in Serra last year, but we lost 300. But the fact we lost 300 had nothing to do with the missionaries contest. It has to do with clubs being able to retain members. And we have a little presentation as part of the club officer training about membership being a process. Part of the process is to get people in, but part of the process is also to retain them. And it usually doesn't fall to the membership vice president. It falls to a good president, a good programs vice president who has programs that are interesting and tied to vocations, because that's why people join Serra. It comes down to good communications, meaning you don't just send people out a notice and say, hey, next month we're going to have so-and-so speak. You got to have your speakers planned out in advance so people can get this stuff on their calendars. The world's too busy otherwise. You're just going to be crowded out. So in the vocations program, the vocations vice president is the way that a lot of people get to know about Serra on the outside. So to think that it's all the vice president of my membership's responsibility is a big mistake. And we can't do that. So retention is very important. And I want to say one last thing. People have asked me, why isn't growing membership itself one of your priorities? And I tell you this, Membership growth is not the Serra mission. The Serra mission is to foster and affirm priesthood and religious vocations. And I think if we stay focused on that mission, we will grow the way the Lord wants us to. I think it'll happen. Doesn't mean you don't have to work at it. You don't have to go out and ask. But I think that if we stay focused on the mission, we won't fail. So, any other questions or comments? Well, Dr. Ann Road over here is taking over the reins as chair of the Leadership Development Committee that training has fallen under. But she and I have talked about that, and I think that that was a big change. You know, it sort of happened before the pandemic, and it happened in the central region because our region was so spread out. We couldn't get anybody to come to a training Saturday. People had more time driving than they had actually in the training sessions. So we started using the webinars, and I think that what it's done is it's allowed a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise have access to that information. You know, I think we had about between 150 and 200 people attend each of the sessions last year, which sounds great, but if you think about it, there's probably about 1,200 officers in the 200 clubs in the United States. So we're still reaching less than 20%. And we really need to get, now what we don't know is if anybody's looking at those offline, you know, the recorded versions. We don't have any good statistics on that at all. But I've talked to enough people, you know, like just questions you get about how does the Serra Council work, and those things are addressed in some of that training. So I don't think everybody's getting the message. We need to do a better job. But the good thing is, everybody's hearing the same message in the United States, and I think that's really important. And once we get one message down, then I think we can work on refining it, make it better and better and better. You know, the problem with the old training model was that it was all fell on the shoulders of the district governor, and each district governor had to go through and recreate the wheel every year almost to figure out what to train, and they don't know everything. I mean, it's that what we've got now is a refinement of years of ideas and criticisms and comments, and you should add this or you should say this. So I think it's gotten better because of that. I believe in leaving things to the Holy Spirit. I think God has great plans. And it may be that somebody that isn't active for 5 years all of a sudden blooms and becomes, you know, takes over a whole project. I think it's really important to get people engaged right when they join Serra Clubs and doing stuff, to get that habit built. And one of the programs that I like the best is the spiritually adopting a seminarian. I know we had a disaster in our club started because our president got so excited about doing it, he took out the list of 16 seminarians and he just assigned all the Serrans to one of them, you know. Well, Serrans didn't take well to being assigned to volunteer work. And that project died a hard death. But we have another one going right now, a young lady who just joined, who I knew before she was a Serran, and she took over the Adopt a Seminarian program, and I think we've got, all the seminarians have at least 3 people praying for them. Now, we have about 150 people in our club, so that's not a lot. There's 16. But still, that's pretty good. And I'll tell you one thing that program does is it gives people an ability to have a personal relationship with a seminarian. And you get something like that going, you'll never lose those people, I guarantee you. Something like that is really good. So, but I think every club is a mix of, there's some people, like I have a brother, he has his kids. I have a nephew who's a priest. I have a niece who's a sister. They're both his kids. And he pays his money to Serra and he says, I'm busy. He says, that's it. And I think, okay, Bob, that's the way we'll do it. We'll take your money. And I have other people that are just give their hearts to Serra, you know, and you got people in between. We have at least 25 people that are in nursing homes, and for those people, the ability to say a daily rosary or a weekly rosary is almost what they live for. They know they're doing something valuable there, and if that's all they ever do, that's fine. So I think there's a mix there. They are available. And they'll be, we'll probably redo those again. We usually do a preview for the district governors during the district governor training, and then we make refinements, and it's usually late April, early May is when we do those trainings again.
Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.